Hey, welcome back to the Closing Room AZ. I'm your host, Jesse Moreno, Realtor and Investor here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are going to start our second part two of our podcast. We have our special guest today, Manuel. Manuel, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Actually, great to be here and actually continue on the second part. That's a lot we didn't cover on the first part. So if you guys haven't had a chance, definitely go back to the first part.
Yep, absolutely. Get back on. Like I said, this is our part two of maybe part three of our podcast. There's a lot of information. Now, we did talk a few things. We did speak about a few things in our first podcast that I think if you guys haven't had a chance to view it, get back on, pull up podcast number 1 with Manuel Amaya, and you'll hear some information about, some topics that we call the big question, why working with the right realtor and the lender, what that means, right? So what it means working with the right people and why it matters, right? Which was, we talked about experience, we talked about knowledge, networking, and relationship, and what those 4 things mean, and how we broke it down. We broke it down and what that means in those 4 areas of those. I don't know what you call it.
Actually, support for you as a client. Yeah.
Right. We also talked a little bit about common problems in our field, right? Real estate and lending. Common problems such as financing, property inspections, things that come up, things that are on the contract, the timeline, things that are on title, things that are, there's that clouded title and how to remove it, who to talk to, and how to get by and how to take care of that, right? Big mistakes when you're buying a property, whether you're rushing through the deal or you haven't spoken to a lender. So, things like that. And, what we could probably end up doing too in part 2 of this podcast is probably even circle back a little bit, because I'm sure there'll be things that we'll be talking about here in a minute that might help us to circle back to some of those questions and some of those things that we're sharing in our part 1 of the podcast. But we're going to dive in right now and talk about business owners and investors, right? Why using a realtor and a lender is a competitive advantage when you're utilizing the right team for that. And in our prior podcast, we talked about the networking, and this is kind of where I see it, is working with the right lender, finance person, or the right realtor is the advantage in this competitive market, because this is a cutthroat business sometimes. And if you're not with the right folks, you can get lost, right? And of course, overall, we want to make sure you're protected, whether you're the buyer or the seller. We want to make sure you're protected correctly in this transaction, from the real estate side as well as from the lending side, right? So let's talk a little bit about that competitive advantage, Manuel. What do you think? What do you see here?
Well, as a competitive advantage, me being an investor or me being a consumer or business owner coming in, the reason why I need, and there's several points in your life, no matter if you're a business owner in personal life, right? 1, you always need an attorney on speed dial. Number 2, you definitely have to have a good accountant or CPA, not just somebody that does your taxes, but is able to actually educate you and show you a way to go ahead and put you on the path or position you in such a way where you can maximize everything. Your realtor, right? You need to have a great realtor. Reason being is you too will come across somebody, a confidant at work, family members, or maybe your own kids, right? They're turning 18, 19 years old. They're starting to work. There needs to be that financial education, right? That's beyond the school or what school teaches or college. So we want to make sure that, you're listening to somebody who's not just talking about it, who's actually doing it, right? And that's where it's important. And then how to get there, right? So sometimes, and I tell my clients, and I'll be real quick on this, what's it going to take for you to get to your goal, and how fast you want to, get to your goal? It's your goal. So, if you need to save up and you're short like $16,000, divide, if you want to get there in a year, divide 365 by that 16,000, and you'd be surprised how much you have, either to save or to make money extra per day. Sometimes it's $50 to $100. I mean, $100, right? If you're doing it every single day for the next year, that's $30,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
For our Hispanic culture, and I hate to put it this way, but how many times you get a call, and all of a sudden your family, calls you and says, hey, we're going to do a quinceañera, and it's like, 30, 40 grand. It's like almost getting married, right? So, but people come up with the money pretty fast. So if you can come up with the money pretty fast for that, you can come up with the money pretty fast for your own financial future, for your kids and everybody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me share a little bit about some of the advantages of working with the realtor, and maybe you could share a little bit about on the lending side of it, right? So for sure working, and this is for business owners and investors, but when you're working with the realtor, first off, you're going to get properties that are off market. I have access to that, so you'll see these properties that are off market, exclusive opportunities for the investor, for the business owner, right? So those are the advantages you get when you're working with the realtor. If you're working with me, for sure, right? And not to say that other realtors don't have that opportunity or that advantage as well, but if you're out trying to find it on your own, you're going to miss you're going to miss those properties that are off market that I have access to, right? I would say the other one is deep market insight that I have regarding the area. Whether it be rent values in the property. If you're a business owner, you're looking to buy a property or lease a property, right? We could talk about rent values there. We could talk about the trends. We could talk about the growth areas and what's going on in the area, right? For an investment, one thing you don't want to do is get a property, put it in an area where there's no growth or opportunity, and it's going to be a bad investment. Right?
And you said the greatest thing right there, right? So I have a lot of clients I do recommend over to, to counsel with Jesse, and everything starts with a conversation, right? And so, clients or people I've talked to in the past that have sat with you, right, really get a good understanding from a business point of view. Let's just say, you want to be, or you're actually in the business of elder care, right? So it's in-home elder care. And I know you've helped a few clients of ours. And so, with that, you provided the opportunity not only to care for someone, but also found the property that qualifies for those programs.
Absolutely.
So that takes a lot of research, and a lot of time on your part, but also, a lot of, I don't want to say the word hand holding because the person already knows what they need because they're already doing it, but really just like where they want to go in their business. And, you help them get to the next level, not just once, but several times.
I appreciate that, man. Well, that's I appreciate you, Manuel, for saying that, and it's true, and that falls on both sides, right? I mean, I've sent you business as well, clients, and they help them out with the lending side of it or whatever it may be, and you take care of that, and you're always looking for the best options for them, but most importantly to me, I think too is the educating piece of it. Yeah. It's not just let me write up a contract, let's get you going. It's about educating the customer, whether the seller or the homeowner or the buyer, whatever the case may be, is educating them so they know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and they also understand the process of the transaction, right? Because it's also key. Another advantage I would tell you that when you're working with the realtors and working with someone like myself is also the strong networking that I have, right? So I'm going to connect you as a business owner, as an investor. I'm going to connect you with contractors that I know, right? Attorneys that I know, inspectors to help you through that process of what you're looking for when you're buying a property, right? As far as the build of the property, construction process, the cost, whatever the case may be, right? They'll help you with that. Inspectors, home inspectors, making sure the property is in line and there's in line with the build of the property. And it qualifies too because a lot of lenders, certain lenders that use certain type of programs are going to require that the house qualify a certain way, right? They have their certain guidelines. And of course, overall, and most importantly, is the skill negotiation piece of it. When you're working with somebody, that is key, right? I love negotiating, to be honest with you. When my buyers tell me, "Hey, Jesse, I want to buy a property," and we'll start with the buyers first to give you a little bit of background on that. I always tell them, "Look, I know they're asking for $500,000 for this home, for example. We're not going to offer $500,000. We're going to negotiate that. I'm going to do my very best to get you the lowest price into this property, not just the lowest price, but also have them take care of as much concessions as possible to help you with your closing costs. Maybe cover my commission, my compensation, right? Whatever it may be. But that's my part of negotiation, and I love negotiating, man. I love going back and forth. I don't know if it's a saying, but in this business, the person that speaks first is probably the person that's going to lose, right? So I like to ask the question, like to negotiate, and I like to sit back and wait for the response. And when they respond back, they're a little bit under pressure because they know they got a potential buyer. They know they got an agent that's going to negotiate back and forth until we get it to get to the closest where we want it to be on our price. And again, working with someone that's just strong in negotiations, have those skills, is paramount, man, to our business. And I know, man, you have the same thing, right? I mean, you're not that you're negotiating it, but you're having that conversation with the realtors so that it aligns with your buyer or whoever you're qualifying, right? It's because I've had that experience with you. You're calling me up and you're telling me, hey, Jesse, man, we got to make sure that this person, this is what they think, this is what they need. This is the kind of property they're looking for. This is the situation. I mean, you basically kind of educate me and you tell me exactly what needs to be done. And that's kind of like negotiating me, right? It's like you tell me exactly where we need to be so that I could get you that for your client. Because if I don't do that, then obviously your client's not going to come back to you and say, hey, I want to work with Manuel. You just throw me out there and hopefully someone can help me out. No, you're really the advocate for that person. And by doing so, is you're having that conversation with me to make sure I'm in line for your client, right?
No, exactly. And it's because we've not only known each other for quite a while, but we work with each other for quite a while as well. So there's a certain level of expectation, but also, there's friendship, business is business, but it's not a cutthroat between you and I, because at the end of the day, we both want exactly the same thing for the client,
What's
right?
best for the client.
What's best for the client.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's even, a betterment for the client that you say, hey, I may have somebody else who can actually position someone a little bit better. And I say, fine, let's take care of them, because later on down the road, I know that within 3 to 5 years, financing is going to be there for something else, right? It's something I can handle, or maybe they're growing their business.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. And then when it comes to business owners, right, as well, is help them to identify properties that are aligned with the right zoning of of what they're looking to build.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to add a gas station, we got to make sure that particular lot is zoned where they could do that gas station. Right. You just can't build a gas station on any kind of property. Right. There's regulations and zoning laws that we got to follow. So working with the right folks to understand that is also key. Right. Sometimes,
so.
yeah, I think, what happens is buyers or sellers, whatever, they're just going to work with whoever just to kind of get the deal done and move it forward. If you're a savvy business owner and you know the business, then I feel pretty comfortable to say that they also know how to work with a good realtor. Interview the realtor, ask a lot of questions, reach out to me and I'll give you the list. And you could ask me my questions that I have out there, ask it to another realtor and see how they answer it, right? But it's important that you know who you're working with, and that's paramount for me as well. Guiding you through complex commercial leases is also key, right? I mean, I had a business in the past in a different state where I had to negotiate and go through that proper lease process to make sure I'm getting myself into the right building, the right lease, so there's no hiccups when I try to get out of it and so forth, right? Making sure the triple net is correct. And there's just a lot of things. So having the right agent that understands that process is also important. Would you agree?
I fully agree. Just to add to that real quick, one of the common problems that we both face, right? We definitely face is the communication part. So though we're business owners, because they're running a business, they're occupied all the time. And so they hold their business in priority. But sometimes we need to communicate with them, right? Me as the lender, trying to get additional documentation because underwriting found something. I mean, yeah, I could talk to your CPA or accountant, but the person that they need to hear from is actually you as the business owner that's buying that commercial property, right? So, and I can get a hold of your realtor, but the realtor is also going to try to get a hold of you. So in essence, if we call or if we, or if your realtor text messages you, I mean, there's a reason why. So, sometimes a quick minute, or if we can schedule an appointment with you, is key, because that also keeps you on point for closing on time.
Right, for sure. Man, let me ask you this, man, because you asked me, well, like, what sets me apart as a realtor, but what sets you apart being in the field that you're in?
That is a great question. The best thing I could say it in the most simplest way, I'm your advocate. When you talk with me, you're also talking to my whole team and my whole network. So what I bring to the table is not only, many years of experience, but also a little creativity, because I've seen almost every single way, not every single way, but almost, way to close a deal. Sometimes it just takes a little collaboration. Sometimes it just takes timing and knowing when to pull the trigger. So many customers come up as a business owner or on the consumer side or investor who's going to invest in real estate property and may want to go a little too fast. So I'll slow them down. I show them how to not only use the banks, for their endeavors, but also how to position themselves, because people don't realize, and I'll just talk real quick, any type of account that you use to manage your funds is actually, you get a report every single month from your checking account. So that report shows how you manage your cash flow. Sometimes it's the way you make your payments. Sometimes it's how you make your payments. So what I do is I bring a specific light to your situation. You know where you stand, whether credit-wise or income-wise or, based upon your goal. And then once we know the timeline of where you want to be, the path to get there reveals itself. So what I bring, to the table is actually a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge, right? But I'm also going to be straightforward with you. And if it's something that you can't do, that's okay.
Right. Man, you are a one-stop source, not just for business finance, but real estate lending, and even probably, I would say, some personal lending solutions for our listeners, right? So you're definitely a one-stop source, resource for that. And like I said earlier in our conversation, you come with a lot of experience, and that's your forte, man, I guess, right? That's what you're great at, and that is the lending side of it. I got to tell you, I think, if anything, it's important that they always reach out to us for a lot of questions and we'll try to give you the best answers that we can. But work with people that are very knowledgeable in this business. They have a lot of experience, and you bring that to the table. And and we're very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to know you, that you have that experience. And I know a lot of people that I know that say I've worked with Manuel in the past have that. I've said that because you do come with a lot of experience, dude. And that is your one-stop resource that you bring to all of us, man. You're the business financing, the real estate financing, or the real estate lending part of it, and of course, just all the solutions that you bring to the table. We might end up doing part 3 here because we are coming short again on our time. I try to keep my podcast. My listeners that have been following me, they'll tell you they're in the average about 20 minutes. So I try to keep it in there, but I want to close, and then we'll try to make time maybe for part 3 of our podcast because we got some more. But I want to talk about really quick, I guess, our core message or maybe the philosophy behind this, right? And I'll start it off because you had mentioned to me, or you had sent me something the other day and says, everything starts with a conversation, right? So don't let uncertainty stop you. And when you said that, you added a few things in there. Do you know what that was? Remember what you told me?
I said a lot of stuff, man.
Right. You said, hey, well, here's what you told me, right? You said, like, everything starts with a conversation. Don't let uncertainty stop you from buying a house, right?
No.
Don't investing, right? Expanding your business. And those 3 things is part of the real estate world, right? Buying a home, investing, expanding your business. And it's so true, man. Everything starts with a conversation. You could have a dream and you could think about it and say, I want to do this and do that. But if you don't start sharing it and talking it and speaking it out loud, man, it's not going to come to fruition. It's not going to happen. You got to make, you got to do that. You got to be proactive and you got to say it. And it stuck to me because I thought to myself, man, so right. Everything does start with a conversation. And I know we talk a lot, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll hit you up and I'll say, hey, I'll call you up and I'll say, hey, what do you think about this? And vice versa, you do the same. And that's how it starts. It starts with a conversation. And that's where it leads us to where we're at now with what we got going on, right? And all the things happening is because if you don't have that conversation, you'll never know. I'm going to tell my listeners to do this. Make sure that you guys provide some feedback. Make some comments on our site when you go into my YouTube channel, or you follow me on Instagram, or you follow me on Facebook, whatever the case may be. And me, Manuel, we'll get back to you and we'll answer those questions. If there's something you disagree with, man, let us know as well. Because we need to know, hey, outside of how we think and how we see things, people may have a different opinion. That's okay, because we need to know that too, right? We don't know it all, but we want to hear it back. So reach out to us, hit us with a comment, let us know. Let us know if you want to hear part 3, because we got more stuff, but we are limited on time, so we want to make it enjoyable, informative as well, right? Anything you want to add to this, man, before we close out?
I'm just definitely appreciative. Guys, if you want to get a hold of the network that's actually going to work for you And again, we're just selling ourselves, right? So at the end of the day, as you write down all your notes and everything, write down your plan. Call Jesse or get a hold of Jesse, talk with them and let them know what your plan is, right? If you're a business owner, want to buy, guess what? That takes time. So let's make sure you're positioned right to get qualified and actually get approved.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
you can find the property. And trust me, there's a ton of properties out there that are not on the multiple listing services.
Absolutely.
Right?
Correct. Yep, for sure. Hey, Manuel, big thank you, man, for coming out again and,
appreciate it, man.
doing
Thank
part
you.
2 with me. I think we're going to have you back and do another part 3. We got some more stuff to talk about. Definitely, you brought some great insight from your leadership experience that you bring to the table, man. So thank you for sharing that. We got another strong topic coming up next week as well. We got a lot of things happening this week as well. We got a lot of guests on our podcast and our show. So stay tuned. Keep following. Make sure you guys log into our YouTube channel. It's the Closing Room AZ, all one word. When you look us up, type it in, or there will be a link on this video at the bottom. Just click on the link, take a look, subscribe, man. Make sure you guys subscribe, share it with your family and friends. Most importantly, leave me some comments, some feedback. We'd love to hear what you got to say. And other than that, till next week, we'll do this again.
Yeah, sounds
All right?
great.
All right.
Thank
Appreciate you guys spending time with us. Thank you again. Until next time, have a blessed week. Set no limits.